Hi there and welcome to the latest in my series 5 best of, where we are going to do something I've been really looking forward to. 5 best Roman silver coins. We've done 5 best all-round coins, 5 best artifacts, 5 best Roman bronzes, now 5 best Roman silvers. This will probably be the last one of the Romans, since I haven't found any Roman gold coins, but one day I'm still quite hopeful. Anyway, let's just go straight to it. Ooh, number 5. So as always, in reverse order, but not in any particular order. I think number 1 probably is my favourite. It's hard to choose 5 coins out of all the ones that I've found anyway. But here we go. It is a denarius. They're all denarii, but I'm going to throw a surprise in as well. It's a denarii of Vespasian, so it's quite an early one. Vespasian was emperor between 69 and 79 AD. He was the 4th emperor of what they called the Year of the 4 Emperors. After Nero committed suicide, there was basically civil war for the best part of a year, deciding on who was going to succeed. Otto and Galba were pretty unsuccessful. Vitellius then, I think, was emperor from April 69 AD, and I think Vespasian was in by July, so things happened fairly quickly. He was in Judea at the time, quelling a rebellion over there, of which I think he was pretty important. In fact, I think he was also legate for Claudius's invasion of Britain, so he was a military man and a well-respected one by all accounts. This one I've only just learnt, quite interesting. This is an early denarius for him. It is probably minted in 69 or 70 AD, and they reckon that, well, on the reverse is Fortuna Redux, and one of the things Fortuna was in charge of was getting people back safely. So this coin is in commemoration of getting Vespasian back from Judea safely, which dates it to about 69-70 AD, a very early coin in his reign. They reckon that the portrait used was based on that of Vitellius, his predecessor. They didn't have anything else to go on. Through descriptions, they sort of altered it slightly, but more or less, it's a Vitellius and Vespasian mix. Please correct me if I'm wrong on all this. I read up on things and I rely on on knowledge that I've learned over the years, but I don't do a massive amount of research, so it all just sort of comes out from the top of my head. So if I'm wrong, just let me know. Anyway, he also debased the silver content of a denarius from 95% to 90%, but you wouldn't know in this one, mainly because I think it's an early one. And the reason I've chosen it is absolutely spectacular. It could have been made yesterday. The portrait and the relief is so crisp. I mean, it's a wonder it survived so well. It's the best conditioned denarius that I have found on both sides. So you've got him on one side, looking rather Vitellius-esque, and you've got Fortuna on the other side. And it's just an absolutely cracking coin. I really love it. Ooh, number 4. Now, this is not in such good condition. Actually, it's more than likely to be extremely debased, or a furre, which is a posh word for a contemporary forgery. The reason we can tell this, and one of the reasons I've chosen this coin is to illustrate this, is you can see where the bronze, or rather the copper, has been leaching out of the core itself and staining the actual outside. The silver does not look like the best quality either. So this is probably a copper core with silver on top, either a forgery or an extremely debased coin. But it's that of Elagabalus. Now, if you don't know about Elagabalus, I'm not going to start telling you now. Look him up, but get a stiff brandy while you're at it, because I mean, he makes madmen like Caligula and Nero look fairly normal. In many ways, I don't really blame him. He came in after Caracalla, at the age of 14. It's pretty complicated how he inherited the emperorship or the top job. Read about it. It's interesting. Anyway, in AD 218 he came in at the age of 14 years old, and he was assassinated only 4 years later at 18. But what he got up to in that time in the royal palaces was, well, you can understand why they didn't like him very much. He was pretty incompetent, and he got up to all sorts of stuff. There's no wonder they got rid of him. They had to, but I mean, can you blame him? He was 14 years old. I mean, what he got up to is probably fairly unforgivable in many ways, but he was very, very young, and I do feel rather sorry for him. But anyway, I mean, this is part of the reason I do this. I do this hobby. It's what you learn from what you find, not the prettiest denarius you'll ever see in the world by any stretch, but my God, I really wanted to find an Elagabalus. I just wanted one of his coins. So yeah, that's him. Sorry, I've been a bit sketchy about him. I mean, even his real name, which is sort of Marcus Antoninus la-di-da, is, I don't know off by heart at all. And Elagabalus actually comes from the dog Elagaba, he and his family were sort of in charge of worshipping, for want of a better way of explaining it. Anyway, I'm waffling on now. Elagabalus, number 4. Right. Number 3. Well, one of the girls. For obvious reasons, you don't get women as much on Roman coinage as you do the men, and I just think it's really nice to at least try and get one girl in per series of 5 coins. This is a particularly nice one of Faustina II. Now, there's a good portrait of her on one side, and there is her as the goddess Fecunditas. I don't know if that's pronounced correctly, I hope so, who was the goddess of fertility. And here she is seen holding 2 children and having a couple of children at her side. She was married to Marcus Aurelius. They had 14 children in all. I don't think that many survived. In fact, I think the only surviving son was Commodus of Gladiator fame. I think you can take that film with a big pinch of salt, but it's historically it's sort of semi-correct. She was born in 130 AD and became empress or Augusta in 161 AD. Contemporary sources aren't particularly flattering about her, though it does seem she was very popular with the military and the army, and she accompanied Marcus Aurelius on several sort of military campaigns and things. So she obviously got fairly stuck in, and she was popular for that reason. And even though I mentioned I don't think contemporary reports were particularly glowing, it seems that they were pretty fond of each other, and they had a pretty good relationship. She was deified after her death, and I think Marcus Aurelius made quite a fuss about all that. So he obviously really liked her. And it's just a particularly nice coin with a particularly nice portrait. It's got a good relief on it. As I said, it's a shame about that nick, but otherwise it's a really nice one. Number 3, Faustina Jr., Faustina II. Ooh. Number 2. Now, I really, really like this coin. It is a Republican denarius. So, pre all the emperor. It is the oldest coin I have found to date because it dates to about 136 BC. Now, I just find it fascinating. They're knowing a bit more about it now, not completely uncommon. But this coin was minted almost 200 years before the Roman invasion under Claudius. Okay, the Romans had been over years previously, but that was just a holiday. That was just an in and out, smash and grab. The fact that we find Republican coins in this country which date to 200 years before the proper invasion, I just think that's completely wonderful. And it does ask the question, why are they here? Well, there's several reasons, they reckon. Firstly, trading was obviously an ongoing affair well before the Romans came to Britain, and therefore silver coins would have been used amongst the Iron Age tribes of Gaul and Britain. But I think probably more realistically, this denarius and when it was made in 136 BC would have had a very high silver content and therefore held a very intrinsic value. even late Republican denarii and those from Augustus, and especially Nero about 50 years later, so mid-late 1st century, were undergoing a serious debasement. And if you own one of these earlier coins, which had a much higher silver content, then you were quids in. And these coins do get found in hoards. And if they were found in hoards, then they were hoarded for an obvious reason, that people wanted to keep hold of these. If you had a not so great a silver content coin under Nero, but a load of these, then you were lucky. It is by the moneyer L. Antestius Gradulus. We can see that because there is a very firm grag on one side of the coin, which depicts the goddess Roma with her helmet. We don't know an awful lot about him, apart from the fact that he was a moneyer in the 2nd century BC. And on the other side, we have a fantastic image of Jupiter riding his quadriga, which is 4 horses in a row, in a row like that. A much more unstable configuration, apparently. There's a normal configuration, which was 2 horses in front, 2 horses in the back. And a quadriga was sort of reserved for the gods. That's how they like to drive. And he is officially hurling thunderbolts. Now, I can see his right arm raised a bit, but I can't see necessarily any thunderbolts. But that's what he's doing, and it's just a fabulous coin, and it's just so tactile. And every time I just sort of hold it or look at it and just think about who's touched it, whose hands it's been through from that long ago. I mean, starting life off probably in Rome or somewhere like that. And I mean, the mind boggles, doesn't it? Anyway, that's coin number 2. Possibly my favourite, but maybe not. A Republican denarius. And finally, coin number 1, the last one. It's Augustus, formerly Octavian. And it's not in the best condition, but it's a very, very early denarius. Augustus was the first emperor, officially. He was the successor of Julius Caesar under somewhat tricky circumstances. Julius Caesar named him as successor, but he wasn't the obvious choice. And there were a couple of people, including Mark Antony, who were much more obvious contenders. I mean, the history surrounding the beginning of Augustus's reign, as it were, is wonderful. The odd thing is that the more I read about Augustus, the more I know about him, the less I feel I know about him. He is a pretty complicated guy. He was named successor, as I said, under pretty odd circumstances. And a lesser man, at the age he was nominated, as it were, I think he was 18 years old, would have just given in. He was thrown in the towel and just said, well, look, Mark Antony, or whoever it might be, all yours. But no, he decided to keep the top job that he had been allocated by his adopted father and go for it. And he was, I mean, if you don't know much about Caesar Augustus, Octavian, read up about him. It is fascinating. And here's not the time for me to go into it in depth, and I'd probably get it all wrong anyway. But the reason I love this coin so much is that on the reverse is a comet. And it says, Divus Julii. One of his ways of really affirming his right to be the top dog was that he held games very soon after Caesar was assassinated in honour of Caesar. That in itself is a brilliant segment of history. I mean, what surrounded Rome after the assassination of Julius Caesar, he was becoming less and less popular, but I don't think they necessarily all wanted him dead. Anyway, at the beginning of these games, suddenly, as luck would have it, in the sky started shining this incredible star, which actually was a comet. I don't know which comet it was, but it's a well-known one. It shone for 7 days during these games. And that was just perfect propaganda for Augustus to say, that's my father, that's Julius Caesar, he's now a god, he's shining up in the sky, showing us that he is pleased that we're doing all this in his name, etc., etc., etc. And it absolutely did the job, of shoring up Augustus's claim. Not only was Julius Caesar now deified, but I mean, look, like if he was the son of a god, then he was pretty important too. As I said, I'm not going to get bogged down in the history, and I'd probably get it wrong, But I just think that this is just a really important coin for all those reasons. It really did sort of bolster it up. And I don't think this was necessarily a one-off. You can see the comet with all its rays, and there's a sort of burning bit there. I think he minted this quite a lot during his reign. I think this one probably dates to about 20 BC. He had a long reign. He went on and on and on. I think he died when he was 75. He was just an amazing bloke and a brilliant propagandist. But as I said, the more I read about him, the more I know about him, the less I feel I know about him. I don't feel I know much about his sort of character. Anyway, that is number 1. Caesar Augustus. Octavian. So there are all the 5. That was quite tricky to bring it down to 5, but I really enjoyed that. And as I said, I probably got it all wrong. Please feel free in the comments to tell me where I got it wrong and let me know. And I hope you enjoyed that, because that was really fun to do. And I'll think of another 5 best of to do fairly soon. Maybe one day I'll have enough Roman gold to do a 5 best Roman ones. But anyway, thank you very much for... Oh, Taz, come on. Taz, he's been sitting by my feet. He's such a good dog these days. He really is. And you'll be seeing him on lots more metal detecting adventures on the other channel, Holt's Hammer Sagas. Thank you very, very much for watching and listening to all that, and I'll see you soon.